get out your watercolor pencils and learn how to use them with me with this watercolor pencil tutorial. I love this material because it's the best of both worlds. You get to draw, so if you really like control, there you go. And you also get the looseness of watercolor paint. It really is a versatile way to create art. If you're brand new, this tutorial is step by step, and I'll start by slowly showing you how to draw a plant. Then I'll speed things up a little bit and fill my page to create a really fun pattern of this houseplant. The plant I'm using is a small succulent that's indoors, which is a part of the cactus family, but you can use any type of plant you would like. I will include a picture as I paint in case you want to use that as you work. If you love learning about art, hit that subscribe button so you never miss one of my weekly tutorials. This is the plant I'm using today for inspiration, and it's just an indoor succulent or cactus plant. You can see I made a little bit of a mess there, so I'm going to set it off to the side. I'm using my Prismacolor Watercolor Pencils. It's a set I've had for a long time, and if they look like they're wet, that's because I spilled a bunch of baby oil on them in my art supply bag. I'm using a variety of brushes today, some round, some flat, and I think it will be a good range to capture not only the organic shape of the plant, but also the more structured shape of the container. I'll put all of my materials below, so if you're interested in what I use, I'll put that there. I'm using my Fabriano paper, and I put the photograph of the plant itself on the bottom right-hand corner. I'm looking at it directly as I'm drawing and painting, but you wouldn't have the same view, so this kind of gives you an idea of what I'm doing. I'm starting with my brown, and I'm drawing the container, noticing that the bottom curve and the top curve of the container need to be parallel. I'm drawing an ellipse at the top, and keep in mind today, I'm not going for photorealistic perfection. So I'm not spending a ton of time making sure it's perfect. It's more like a quirky illustrator style, just having fun with my materials and the subject matter. I put a little bit of shading on the left-hand side, which I will do consistently throughout this work of art because I will be drawing tons of these little guys. So the next step is adding water, and you can see how the color is spreading and just coming to life. Just like with anything else with watercolor, more water means a lighter color, and then if you want to darken it, you would add more of the watercolor pencil. So I'm being a little shy right now because it's been a long time. I've only worked with watercolors one other time, and I'll put that tutorial above. It was some delicious ice cream cones. And I'm going with my flat brush. I need to add some water on it because I want to capture like the perfect geometric, I shouldn't say perfect, the geometric shape of the container. Notice I'm only using one color for now, and I do have a highlight on my right-hand side. So shadow on the left, highlight on the right. I'm going to try and keep that consistent throughout. Color blending is so important, and it's very rare that I would ever use one color in a work of art. I'm adding some red because I want to mimic the ceramic, pottery, terracotta feel of the pot. It's a little too red. I think if I went back with orange, it would look more like the container. But again, I'm not trying to copy it exactly. So I'm adding it more dominant on the left because I want that to be my darker side, and then taking my flat brush so I can keep that straight edge. I'm going back and blending it into the other side. Again, more water means less or lighter color, and then you can always go back and overlap. I still want this to be a brown container, so the brown is still more dominant than the red, but blending it just makes your work of art have so much more life and so much more interest. I got a little bit outside my edge here, which you'll see me do a lot, but that's an easy fix. Just go back with the brown and darken it, or maybe you just have a looser style watercolor. So see, going back with the brown, I can change the outline, I can change the shape of my container. You're noticing that I'm not sketching it with a pencil first because I'm using watercolor pencils. So if this is your first time using this material or drawing as something that makes you feel nervous, you could sketch it first with a pencil. That way it's exactly the way you want it. That just isn't the way my mind works. I like to kind of jump in, and sometimes it's not a good thing, but I like to kind of jump in and get started. So you work at your comfort level. Now that I have a nice little three-dimensional looking container, I'm gonna start drawing in the plant itself. And again, you can do this with a pencil, but I feel like since it's watercolor pencils, I just like to jump in. So I know it's confusing because I've already added the back of the container. So I'm drawing these long shapes going from front to back. So I am covering up the back part of the container. The reason why I like to draw and develop the whole container is if you have any gaps, it looks totally awkward. I know that my plant is really dark and I will be filling it in to the point where you won't see that back part. So the beauty of this plant is the repetition of leaves. They have this really nice shape. Some are longer than others. You want to give each of them a little bit of character by making them different sizes, slightly different shapes because they're like turning and growing at different angles. I'm shading in a little bit down at the bottom with the pencil, and you can see where the paint's already wet, like down in the container, that it's already bled a little bit. And this time I will blend a second color before I add water. So I wanted to give it a little bit of a yellowness and warm it up. So I'm using Goldenrod. That's the name of this colored pencil, but to me it mimics yellow ochre or just browned out yellow, and I think this will give the plant a little bit more dimension. So I'm doing this before I blend with water. I'm taking my round brush because of the point and I've dipped it in water, and now I'm blending the yellow and the green together. I'm trying to pay attention to each individual, I keep calling them leaves, I guess that's what this is, each part of the plant. I don't want it to be one blob in the middle where you can't tell where each section of the plant spreads out. So I am trying to conserve like the lines that I've created, which I'll go back with the darker brown to make it look more lifelike as well. I really like using this round brush for the points. I think that's one of the most fun part because it's almost like the plant comes to life. And now that I have my general color blocked and blended in, I'm going for darkness. Take a look at the photograph. This plant is really dark, especially at the bottom where each plant interacts and overlaps with each other. There's even like a fold to the plant where the inside would be darker or have a line going through. And I could do this large and spend all day looking at shadows and highlights and textures. But I'm giving it just a quick general impression using dark umber as my darkest value. I am going to mix a little bit of blue with it to see if I can cool it off a little bit and make it look a little bit more like a shadow. There is black in this pack of colored pencils, but I'm not going to use black because I don't want to muddy up my colors. Once I'm happy with my shadow placement, I'm going to use a little bit of water on my brush to blend the blue and the brown together and to make the plant have a flow and not like there's a divided line, but to give it some shading. This is the time if you have any regret about how your plant is shaped or how each part of it comes to an end or a point, this is the time to use the water on your brush to create any detail that you think you may have missed. I'm feeling good about the level of detail. I don't think I overworked it. I captured the essence of the plant. And because I have so much space on my paper, I'm going to repeat my steps. I have sped up the video to twice the speed I actually created it, so just keep that in mind. I'm doing the exact same technique, drawing the container first, adding a little bit of shading, and this time I'm going to change my color scheme a little bit, and I'm going back in with that goldenrod, which to me looks like yellow ochre, to give it just a little bit, oh wait, no, that's orange, isn't it? Yes, I'm going back with orange, and the name of this pencil is just orange, to see if it gave it that terracotta look that I was going for. You may notice this time I mixed the two colors together before adding water, and I'm staying consistent with my shadows and my highlights in the container, keeping it darker on the left and lighter on the right. My brush didn't keep that like really nice geometric container shape that I'd like, but that's okay. I can work and rework it as I go, using pencils and using water to soften or darken my areas. I'm going back with my dark umber to get that really dark soil color on the inside of the container. Now that I know that the watercolor pencils are really opaque and they will cover that up, I'm going to be a little bit less shy applying thick layers of color because I know just with a simple swipe of the brush, your water can make things less opaque, but you can use the pencil to go really dark. That's one of the great things about watercolor pencils is you have so much control. I didn't do a whole lot of blending on the first container, just the red and the brown, so this time I'm really going to town with my colors, and I'm using the same principle I did with the shadows in the plant, and I'm putting blue mixed in with the brown to give it a nice cool shadow. I did go a little dark on the right hand side. I was trying to maintain that as my lighter area, and I kind of went a little bit into that highlight, but that's okay. I'm not going to stress about it. I can always just darken up the other side. Now it's time to go back to the plant, and I did change the view. So what you are looking at is just a general picture I took of the plant, but each time I painted it, I twisted and turned the plant so I was looking at it from a slightly different angle. The beauty of painting plants is you can adjust each leaf, each plant to reflect what you think would make a nice composition. So if you want your leaves to go a certain direction or you want your points to go a little bit different than what you see, you have a little bit of freedom because a plant really can grow a lot of different directions. Just like I did before, I did my outlines first, and I'm using dark green. And I'm going to go back this time and add my yellow so it has a nice blend to it as well. I think it's important to blend your colors. You don't want to just have one color. Sure, the plant is green, but it's not just green. It is reflecting light around it, and there's so much more dynamic color than just like one thing in a container of colored pencils. I am going back in this time with a second green, and it is called Spring Green, but really it's just a lighter, more warm, more yellow green. And I'm kind of filling in the gaps with this, so you have this range of like dark to light and also like cool to warm. So my first plant, I didn't do this, but I'm feeling more confident with my layering since I've done it before. So I want to blend these colors together with my small brush. And I really think the round brush is great for this type of plant because you can achieve a really nice fine point. Just like I did with the first plant, I am paying attention to each shape of the plant. So don't paint just one big blob, paint each section at a time so you maintain the integrity of the shape of the plant. And also you'll see me go back with my dark brown to create those shadows to really give the plant dimension and to give each part of the plant its own shadow and shape. I really love going back and adding the shadows. It just gives it so much more depth and so much more detail. It just starts to come to life. I'm blending in my blue so that I have that nice cool shadow effect, and I'm almost done with this plant. Trying out a slightly smaller rounded brush, so it has a little bit of a finer point. I like it, but I do feel like it kind of gets the same effect as the bigger one. So now that I've done this twice, I feel like I have this large amount of paper, so I'm going to just keep repeating the same steps, but I might change up the color and shape of my containers a little bit, just kind of playing around with blending. Sometimes I add blue to the shadow of the plant, sometimes I don't, but notice I did put a swipe of blue for a shadow underneath each plant. I thought that gave it just a little bit more dimension, and you might have noticed a lot of my watercolor artworks lately go off the page and I fill it up like a pattern. I just think it's a really cool way to paint with watercolor. Instead of doing one singular object, filling up your whole space and making a pattern with it. I'm feeling finished, I'm feeling happy. I love that I did the same plant just over and over again, slightly changing the container and changing the composition of each one just slightly. You could certainly go back in and add patterns and details, but for me, this is exactly what I wanted to achieve today, playing around with my old set of Prismacolor Watercolor Pencils. Thank you so much for sticking around and making art with me, and if you're interested in more tutorials, check these out.